A Grim Conversation, Take Two. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We are here talking about Raid Shadow Legends, having some fun here with Grim Reaper. This is the second time we are recording this because we have had some wonderful technical issues, but that means you are hopefully going to get a much better video because we are absolute professionals at this. Grim, how you doing, my friend?
I'm pretty well, thank you for having me, mate.
Awesome. Yeah. So Grim is a YouTuber. He is a Twitch streamer. He does takeovers, and he is, he's an arena guy. He loves the endgame arena. He loves a lot of the endgame content. He's got some endgame accounts, does a lot of endgame takeovers. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk with somebody about things that I have definitely heard from you guys. You guys are not thrilled with live arena, and one of the reasons you guys are not thrilled with live arena is because you have to face certain mythicals, and there are certain mythicals that are just better than others in live arena, and there are certain mythicals that certainly give people a lot of problems. So we are here to talk about how to best handle some of these, very special and very difficult to handle mythicals. So first of all, I'm going to let you take this part over. We identified 5 mythicals we kind of want to talk about. We're going to group 2 of them into one because the counters can be similar. But what are we think the top 5 most annoying live arena mythicals are?
So it's worth noting that this is obviously a personal experience, and this is down to personal opinion. Everyone's top 5 will be slightly different depending on how your count is tailored and what champions you got and your experience against these champions. But personally, the top 5 for me, the top 5 worst ones would be starting off with Star Sage and High Elves. Would be a massive problem for a lot of people. I think he's clearly top 3. A second one would be Nice as well, which is questionably a top 1, who is a Silver Watchers champion. He is a absolute beast, and the relics have made him stronger for sure. Same for all these champions, really. Third place for me would go to Gizmak in Ogle Tribes, because this guy is absolute hell. However, he's took a little bit of a hit lately, which we'll talk about when we cover him in today's video. Then we'll talk also about Sigford, who is a Sacred Order, one of the OGs, one of the original ones that last released. Not a great champion when he first came out, let's be honest, but that buff was probably the best buff in PvP, and he's probably the hardest hitting PvP skill on that A3. Then we're also going to be covering the Nightmare, the one and only, one of my favorite champions in Raid Shadow Legends, Commodus, Dark Smiles. I think he looks absolutely brilliant with amazing artwork, probably one of the best artworks in Raid itself. And this guy is a absolute hell to deal with if you're not experienced in arena, if you don't know your arena too much. So we will cover some gear sets that can help you with this, which will kind of be a little bit surprising. But we are talking about end game live arena, so we're talking about the best of the best builds, which make them so broken and so hard to face.
Yeah, and the idea here is to translate some of this stuff to lower level as well. So we'll talk about some of the early counters and some of the later counters, because some of the early counters may not work for you as well. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those. First of all, we're going to cover a couple of gear sets quickly, just because we're going to talk about them pretty regularly. Stone Skin is going to get brought up quite a bit. Most of you probably know what Stone Skin does here with the extra protection, and Stone Skin is just one of the best ways to stay alive in arena. So you'll find that I don't want to say it's 90%, but probably at least 75% of all champions end up with Stone Skin builds in high-end arena, pretty much.
Yeah, more or less. It is worth noting that these stone skin accessories are really important as well. It's going down in value as more things are released in Raid, but that's fine. Balancing out the meta is perfectly fine. Another thing we are going to kind of talk about today will be Ferald, mainly talking about accessories, which you can kind of pair up with Stone Skin to counter some of these champions. We'll talk about relics, we'll talk about blessings, which will be really important to kind of go with these two sets, because otherwise you're leaving some holes in your gaps and you're leaving yourself open. And then also we're going to cover Bolster as well. Bolster can help mitigate some of this damage from these champions as well, that we're going to talk about in today's video. And obviously we'll cover champions as well. So yeah,
Yeah, in
So
fact,
I
I think
guess
we'll mention
we'll,
protection for a couple of these too. In fact, who we were talking about
yeah,
with one of
yeah,
these
yeah,
as
for
well.
sure.
Protection's definitely gotten a lot of traction because it's so useful in PvE that the PvP spillover from that's actually been pretty good too. So,
Mm. Yeah.
awesome. So, which one do you want to start with first? Do we want to start with Galathier or Nice?
I'm going to say let's start with Commodus and Gizmak because the
Okay.
counters are very same. So it's really important that people kind of sit up and take some notes here. A lot of people fear Commodus, a lot of people fear Gizmak because of how explosive they can
Mhm.
be in the damage and the speed that they can come with for sure. So let's talk about these two in general.
Yeah,
Obviously,
just
Sigfrid is a
and just
count.
yeah, just for a overview quickly. Commodus, the problems with Commodus is he's got the 100% steel turn meter and puts target skills on cooldown. That's a single target, so it's a lockout, but it's not that bad. But he basically can strip all buffs from enemies and place block active skills. So he not only does the strip, but he does a lockout, which is a bit of a nightmare, and steals 20% turn meter. So he can possibly pretty much go again. And then in his other form, which is probably the more problematic, is he's got, I think it's this one here, the bombs. He places bombs on everybody, instantly detonates them on champions with stone skin. They're a one-turn stun on anybody who has a bomb detonated by the skill. So if they don't die, they get stunned. And these bombs are only like on one-turn cooldown anyway. So oftentimes you don't even have a chance to recover from them. So he can pretty much just go in and wipe your team if he takes a turn. Whereas Gizmak can certainly do similar sets with that because Gizmak will set you on fire just by existing. And of course, since you have Stone Skin can now be countered with fire. And then he can activate that fire instantly or keep on putting it up on his turn when things happen. And then in his other form, he can just absolutely nuke you with this ability here, oftentimes through Stone Skin or strip the Stone Skin off before he takes a turn because of all the burns that are going on. So that's kind of where these two guys come from. And it's a similar attack vector, even though bombs and burns are obviously different.
Yeah, I mean they're different, but the way that they're played is in the same style of teams. So, for example, if you want to be aggressive in an arena, you got to try and be as fast as possible, and then use these type of burns or bombs to strip the stone skin off, and then allows them to get the advantage over you to kill you. There is ways that we can slow this down. So it's worth noting all the nukers that we will talk about today. The most important bit is about slowing them down. You slow them down, you have a shot at winning. You're not guaranteed a win, but you're slowing it down to get the win, right? So we're going to cover Commodus and Gizmoc first. Let's talk about the soft counters and the more budget options, and then we'll talk about more of the in-game options throughout the video. So today we're going to start off with Queen Ancora, which would be the Night Rev champion. Everyone has her because, well, most people should have her because she was a fusion, so she was a free accessible champion. And running her today, against bombs and burns is very, very useful because she has a cleanse on her A2 ability with shields. Now, there's a few ways that you can gear her up against Gizmak and Commodus. Is by one is stacking bolster throughout your team. You will need to stack probably about 2 bolster sets. What I do against Commodus, it will slow him down, so he will only put the bombs for 2 turns because it's a 2-turn detonation. And if he does activate it, then you'll get stunned, and obviously Ancora can kind of cleanse it off in a kit. Another way to, and that's the same with Gizmak as well, because most of the time Gizmak's not in Savage. He'll be in Stone Skin and Pinpoint, so that will be quite useful. Another way and a better way of building Ancora would be high resistance against Commodus that won't work against Gizmak because his burns are irresistible, which CatHerder will show you what you kind of need to do there as well. And then another option of building her would be put her in a 4-piece Stone Skin and 4-piece Ferald. Now you will need Ferald accessory sets to get that, and the only way you can access them is by winning Siege. Not taking part, you have to win the Siege because it's a part of the chest, which will be the accessories only.
To be fair, if you have Stone Skin accessories, you can do Feral regular gear and accessories too. But regardless, if you have accessories for both of them, you're fine. But that's why the accessories are so important. The more accessories you have for more sets, it is more flexible to build champions. And it really is about this 4-piece block debuffs on the Feral for a lot of these champions. Because Ancora doesn't really need a lot of accuracy. It doesn't hurt on her kit because she has a few things that affect enemies, but she doesn't need a lot of it.
Yeah.
But that high
I mean,
resistance, very good. Obviously, mine's just in plain stone skin and pinpoint. Um,
yeah.
Pinpoint can be helpful as well, especially if we're talking about Commodus's stun. Pinpoint can certainly help against the stun for that particular part of it as well. But the block debuffs is more universal for you on that.
Yeah, you'll need to run Lightning Cage Blessing to protect that protection, because sorry, the immunity buff.
Mhm.
And you would also need to ideally run high resistance. If you can't, then just go tanky. And then obviously for Relic, Aspect of Seraph or the one of Submissive would be the two ways to go for the Relics to also protect her from like being sheeped, etc., from like armads and stuff like that. So they're the ways to kind of go with that. We do have a video actually on the channel to do them, on my channel actually
Mhm.
talking about that. Obviously there is other champions as well that can do the same kind of job, which would be Lady Noel, which would be in the Sacred Order faction, who was a fusion at Christmas, if I'm not mistaken, with
Yep.
Cernic. So you can do the same kind of style of build on her. You can do the same kind of style of build on Duchess, Freya. Anyone really with a block buffs and or a cleanse can do this type of job. So you'll need to make them the fastest. Another option would be Mephala Lifebane
Mhm.
as well. They're also all options.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any counters yourself that you want to talk about or anything like
No,
that.
I think I brought up Mithril last time, and yeah, she's a great one. Mithril is a good budget option because she's got the accuracy turns into resistance, so it's really easy to get her a super high resistance. In fact, one of the highest resistances in the game. It's easy to get her for.
Mm,
Elva's a great cleanser that also brings the block debuffs on, so that can be very helpful as well. In fact, that's kind of the point where we talked about protection. Your 9-piece protection Elva for Chimera, if she's fast enough, could also possibly be usable in arena. Obviously, that you're taking the risk that she could get killed because she doesn't have stone skin. But if she can get a turn with that protection, she might be able to get protected block debuffs, which may be enough to stall most of those champions in their tracks, especially because she does the cleanse as well.
mm. Yeah, so again, covering these builds, they also help counter Gizmak, because the reason is Gizmak won't get his burns on enemy, which means he
Mhm.
won't get a double hit, which is going to be super effective as well. I guess then we can talk about the bit more of the OP counters, right? The big boy, the money makers.
Yep.
So the way to also counter this, which are on the list as well, to cover Gizmak would be Ashnar. Ashnar can stop the burns through that. It can also counter Sulfurion as well with these areas. With that, another one you can also use, which is quite common to see towards the endgame arena, would be Mariska from the Bannerlords, because she puts up the block damage when they're under poisons, burns, and bombs. So Mariska is really common to see. So if you're trying to counter Gizmak, take both of them together. You definitely won't regret it. Ashnar is super strong now against a few of these champions that we will talk about today. And then we've also got the Sigford, who would need to be in a 4-piece Herald and 4-piece Ignore defense set, so he can still be a nuker. The reason is that he'll kill the whole team, and then he will also flip around, do the revive, etc.
Mhm.
And then that also helps counter Gizmak, because Gizmak can only ignore block damage if the enemy is under burns, which is quite useful to know. And then another one would be Anise as well, because he would also go into no sacred watchers. Yeah, that's it. Because you'd put him in a 4-piece Ferald and ignore defense as well, because he's going to revive on the form 2. So
Yep.
it's really, really useful. Bombs can ignore his passive, which can be a problem for him, which is really, really useful. Again, you're going to run one of submissive as the relic, ideally, which would be the way to go. And then you would be running Lightning Cage as the blessings to protect that Ferald. I've seen a few times as well, like people using these sets when they're not running Lightning Cage, and then they
Mhm.
just lose it. It's just kind of dumb, because especially Commodus, he will just strip you, right? And
Yeah.
he's really good at it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
it's one
worth
of these weird
noting.
things. We talk about sheep being the problem with a lot of stuff, and to be fair, sheep can possibly counter Commodus as well. But there's so many counters now for sheep that having the ability to just simply protect your buffs and not have your buffs stripped can be really better actually than having sheep in some cases. So you're seeing lightning cage a lot more often. Empress is another
Mm,
one. Basically, what you're looking for in champions that you're looking for against some of these is champions that figure out a way to cheat death in some way, shape, or form. Empress is actually pretty good because unlike a Nice who can get double hit and killed when he transforms into a second form and get killed on that second hit, Empress is going to reflect the damage, which means he might kill, and if it's a big nuke, he might kill Gizmak and then revive himself. But he also doesn't even get hit by the second hit in the first place because it doesn't matter because he gets revived afterwards. Leorius might be an interesting, I say to say budget option at this point in time, but Leorius is another one that can keep himself alive when he's about to die. So, although I guess this probably doesn't process with the bombs either, does it?
I think it does actually.
Oh, that's
I
good.
think you can against Nishak and stuff, the bombs would set off the passive. So I don't think the bombs ignore it.
Mhm.
It's been a long time since I've seen a Leo go up against me, if
Mhm.
I'm being honest, with any of the Commodus accounts. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but it might be worth a shout. If you stack him with the right champions like Queen Ancora,
Okay.
a couple like UDK, high resistance, then these options are out there. You can
Yeah.
also use like a Sungwon with a UDK and Korra,
Mhm.
and that it also gives you a chance of winning these fights, which can be a bit hit or miss depending on the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you have people that can stay alive and then Sun Wukong's your nuker, then you could get Sun Wukong back after he dies. And so obviously he can ignore a lot of the protections you might have otherwise for some people, but you still have to have a team that's going to survive with him. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of the ways to cheat death. Finding people that have cheat death mechanics, that's part of why these champions are super meta. You'll notice we didn't mention Rhodos in these because Rhodos with the double hit against Gizmak, he is certainly possibly vulnerable, particularly because what can happen with Rhodos is even if he doesn't die from Gizmak's double hit, he then takes a turn and then dies from the burns that he has on him, for example, too. And he's a
Mm,
bad affinity. So it's not that he's not a viable counter, he's just not a good counter compared to some of these other champions. And
yeah.
then so but that type of mechanic is just so important in the game for dealing with stuff. So nukers that have that mechanic or even non-nukers that have that kind of mechanic can be very, very helpful as well. I mean, heck, I guess I didn't even think about it, but one of the other more budget cleanser options that can actually give you a bunch of flexibility would be a Cardiel. Don't see a lot of him
Yeah.
anymore, but Cardiel still is actually a viable arena champion in certain teams, and I think are underwhelming and are underappreciated because he's got both the block debuffs, but he's got the revive on death that's irremovable automatically, so he doesn't even need the protection set in the first place. So even if people strip off this block debuffs and then kill your champions and they then revive themselves again, giving you a shot at recovering from it. You still may not, but we're talking
Yeah.
about counters that might give you something.
Yeah, but also it's worth noting, is it, I can't pronounce the name, is it Cardio the Void Epic? If you can put
Oh,
her in a
Cardinal?
high resist, yeah, that's it. If you can put her in a Stone Skin team, she's very good against speed teams,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're like Siphies, Arbiters, etc. You need to build like 800 resistance, and you'll need to build a 6-piece Stone Skin, make as slow as possible. And you're going to take her last, right? Because she's a must ban for a lot of these teams. I've seen a few people try and use her against my Commodus. I just banned her. I'm not playing around with that. I've been around on this scene too long
Mm-hmm.
to know better to let her in a fight. She's like a Hedgie or Tormund to these teams. So that's something to kind of work out that you can also use. I've seen her in 4-piece Ferald and Stone Skin as well, which is not as good as the high resistance build, if I'm being honest, against the Commodus, but it would be better against the Gizmak for sure. And then I guess another soft counter would be Marius in some sense because he can enfeeble them dependent on the builds. He can enfeeble them, but again, it's not the most consistent one
Yeah,
against it
if they've got
because he's
two
not
speed,
a
if they got 2-piece stone skin and they transform, they're going to get, they're going to ignore his weaken the first time. Plus, the weaken is only unfortunately, if feeble is only a 50% chance, 55 with sniper, which you really should have on a Marius.
Mm, yeah. I mean, like my Commodus, for example, level 2 blessing, right? So I don't run Stone Skin because otherwise my stats would be too low and I wouldn't get anywhere. So I run 6-piece pinpoint, and I've probably only seen honestly a handful of times where Marius has been able to land Enfeeble on me, but also the Enfeeble has to be for 2 turns because Commodus can take that extra turn to cleanse it off and then do the big boy, which kind of puts you in a lot of trouble. So you really need to get lucky with the Master Hex and the Sniper sniper as well to proc against, which can happen. Most people will run Commodus and the 4P stone skin and pinpoint node, which won't do much. But again, if you slow him down, you bring him back with that, then that can work as well. So yeah, I guess we could move on to the other champions as
Yeah.
well.
So that's those
So
are some of the counters from obviously some are going to be more accessible than others. You know, the biggest thing is if you can, especially for a Commodus, if you think you can outspeed Commodus, then that's probably the safest way to go. Outspeed him and just kill him before he gets a turn is probably the best way to really get around him. That's obviously very difficult because anybody who's bringing Commodus has probably already tried to set up a speed team in the first place. And actually,
with Commodus,
yeah,
go on. With Commodus and Gizmac as well, it's very hard to deal with them because they're normally in pinpoint, so you can't sheep them that easily. And they also immune to lockout because their better forms are on the second form. So they are very hard to counter even if you're going first. So you need to be really smart on how you're going to deal with these champions. Like you don't want to let both of them into a fight. Most of the time you should be looking to try and ban them, but there is ways that you can kind of deal with it.
Yeah. Block active skills on any champion. As part of where I bring up Carnage, he's one of the accessible mythicals that counters actually. Honestly, he can counter any or every one of these champions fairly well, a bit affinity depending, obviously. But what you do with Carnage is you ideally target the weakest person, get this block active and pack passive skills on that weakest person, kill them, and then he gets irresistible transferred to everybody else. The problem is, while he needs to be able to do this quickly, he also needs to have Stone Skin removed before he can do it in the first place, or else it doesn't matter. So Carnage can be a good counter, but he's not a counter in and of himself for a lot of these teams. He's still a very solid champion and very good to counter this stuff. Plus, he'll help you with that speed aura. That speed aura is pretty amazing too.
Yeah. It's worth noting, like all four of the champions that you can get, Marius, Emerus, Carnage, Lamassu can all not Makage so much, but the four that you can get, the ones I would mention I use on a daily basis to kind of counter all these champions. Lamassu, because she can be really fast, she brings a pinpoint which helps you against polymorph and etc. She can't be sheeped, she got some nice buffs that have great synergy with like Commodus and Fabian and Carnage. It sets up Carnage block revive beautifully, which we'll talk about in today's video about some of the other champions we'll talk about. But I reckon we should be jumping on that Sigfrid now, one of my favorite champions in this game. Yep. I think he's a very solid champion, and a lot of people are scared of him because of how hard he hits on that A2. So I guess I'm going to let you talk about the budget options first, and then I'll talk about more of the Kraken options to counter this guy.
Yeah, certainly on the budget options, one of the nice things about Sigfrid is he's the only mythical that you can actually lock out with champions like your Warlords, your Yumikos, or even your Fabians, because he can't force himself to transform. So as long as you don't kill him last and you lock him out, he doesn't have access to his A3 and his A2. His A3 hits hard, but it's not absolutely. Well, it's A3 is the one that's the big nuke. It is that. The A2 is not super exciting. It does do some good damage, but it's not absolutely amazing. And then, of course, it's this passive here that, the kill by fatal hit blocks damage and then, heals him and puts in the turn meter. What you want with this is if you can hit him with somebody that's got a double hitter that can hit through block damage, you can just kill him directly, because quite often they leave him exposed. Quite often he's not in Stone Skin because he has this protection. One of the champions, I don't say budget because he's obviously a legendary, but one of the newer champions that actually can take him out is Kaolite, who he's got the double hitter A2 that ignores unkillable and block damage. Now you're not going to find him being super useful late, because while this damage does do a decent amount of damage, he's not super useful in a lot of situations, but he is one of the ways you can actually take out he can take out Sigfrid. He actually can take out Nice as well with the same reason. He's got the double hitter that does a ton of damage, so you can do that. Rhodos could certainly hit through that, so you can have Rhodos do a follow-up attack and kill Sigfrid as a certain option. Anybody who can hit through unkillable can take out a Sigfrid. Ideally, if they've got a double hitter with it, they can do it in a single attack. Otherwise, you need two different people, one to hit him and knock him down, and then one to take the next turn and knock him out. And that's difficult too because he does boost his turn meter by quite a bit with this ability.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with Sigford is how hard he hits. So let's obviously we covered UDK and Rhodas. The synergy of them two is amazing.
Yep.
No, obviously Bolster Set can help as well. Slow him down with the UDK kind of pick and the Rhodas. Now Rhodas can't be one shot by Sigford's A3 because of Rhodas passive. Then let's jump over to the relics. We'll talk about relics and countering Sigford because there's two relics, not easy to get, but we all will get them at some point. First of all, we'll talk about the mythical relic that can counter Sigford, which would be the Magma Shield. Now, I am a proud owner of a Magma Shield. It is really underrated, and the way that this works is it gives you a 10% shield, and then you can get strengthened up on that. Yeah, that's it. That's the Magma Shield there. And then it also reflects damage back. So there is a couple of champions that have this type of abilities into their kit, which we'll mention in a second. Again, not really budget options, unfortunately, but this can work well. So the Sigford will do is a free and a reflection will ignore his passive ability, which can counter him. And also, we can talk about Aspec or Siroth, which is on the same page. What Bundle one is submissive. This one is also pretty amazing against him because if he does A3 into the Aspec or Siroth, it will stop the surplus damage on the A3 from killing the rest of the team or smashing the Stone Skin as well. So don't take so long against Sigford unless you're going to whack on a Aspec or Siroth, which will really catch a lot of people off guard, honestly. Which were pretty nice as well.
And that's really nice on Rhodos too, because the way the turn meter works on him, it depletes his turn meter, but Rhodos gets an extra turn when he takes enough damage to receive that fatal hit most of the time anyway. So Rhodos just goes, and this doesn't affect him at all.
Yeah, which the good ways of kind of counter Sigford. Now, the Magma Shield again is the reflection part that's really useful against Sigford. Now, if we start talking about champions like Frowny on his second form, he has it built in. We also have the Chicken as well, who has the reflection built in on form 2 if he doesn't weak it. And then we obviously have Emrys as well, who has the reflection on his second form as well if he doesn't weak it. So if you weak it, it won't ignore the passive, but then it won't kill him because obviously he's weakened, right? So the three ways are kind of using that reflection damage to your advantage.
Arash has actually got this reflection as well. I've actually seen that proc once. Now it's only a 20% chance, which is why he's not a reliable counter from that, but it's a chance.
Yeah, I mean it's an idea, right? If it's the only thing you got, then for sure that's the way to go. Obviously in Harmony, really good. Sorry, not in Harmony.
Yeah,
What's her name? Harima, that's it. Harima is going to be really solid because she's strong affinity against him, and she also has that passive to reduce the damage from the ignore defense ability. She also has a triple hit, so she can set off the passive quite easily. And she can also provoke him, which is a good way to kind of deal with him throughout the fight if you could slow down the fight with Sigford. Another way which would be risky would be the Marius and Harima duo. So if you take them both together, the Marius will give the increased defense, he will do the damage. If he doesn't kill him, then Harima will.
Yeah.
So that's the way to go for sure. Now, Marius needs a really strong build to deal with Sigford because it's a triple hit. He's going to have Lightning Cage. He's going to have the immunity. So you really need a solid build.
Yeah, because he basically, you ideally want to kill him on the first hit if you can. So you've got two shots to strip that block damage is really kind of what you want. Because otherwise what ends up happening is you end up with, he may not have the block damage, but he's still standing there at the end of the fight as well, which can certainly be a problem for you. But at the same time, Enfeeble is another way to deal with him as well. So sometimes you may actually choose to, I'm not going to A2, I'm going to A1, Enfeeble him, prevent him from using the nuke with the Enfeeble, and just kind of gamble on that way. But the way you can gamble on that pretty safely is to use like ally attackers, and so he's getting an extra A1 in there, here or there. So that's again where some good champions like that work. Block debuffs is certainly another, I always say budget-ish option, but block debuffs is something, you throw block debuffs up, he doesn't the passive will proc and protect him. Actually, it won't, because he won't get the block damage in time, will it?
No, so it depends throughout the fight. Like, let's say you're going through the fight, you're using Lamassu. If you're using Lamassu and he hasn't got no stone skin or immunity, you can put up the block buffs on him, and then you can get a damage dealer going. Now, if you don't kill him, he will still get his 100% turn meter,
Yeah.
but he won't get
And it
the
does block the
block damage on
damage,
him.
but he won't get the block
Yeah,
damage on himself. So if you have a
yeah,
if you have block damage, any double hitter has a chance to just kill him through this then,
yeah.
because he won't get the block damage, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can also use Carnage as well to kind of block out his abilities, or something like Ronda for the more budget options,
Narcissus is
etc.
always great because Narcissus is a built-in murderer for this dude. He's got a double hitter with block revive if you don't need to go through that, but he also has the ignores the passive ability to do stuff, so he'll just instantly nuke Siegfried. So that's Narcissus is such a good tramp too. I like using Narcissus.
Yeah,
Yeah, Carnage again, the block passive skills, block active skills, very helpful as well. And even if you don't kill him, if you somehow don't kill him but you get that block active skills on him, he can't use his big nuke. And if he
yeah,
swaps
that's the
forms,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, if he swaps forms, he can't revive. So,
Mm.
you're in good shape
You
from that too.
Yeah, you can also pair something like Death Dealer or Stagnator with Carnage to
Mhm.
help mitigate the weak hits with him, right? I'm a really big fan of Carnage. He's one of my most used nukers
Mhm.
in live arena. He probably is used on a daily basis throughout my account. I don't use him on other accounts, surprisingly, became generally because I just have other strategies. But I am trying to bring him in on the other accounts as well, because he's just so strong, and he's really underrated mythical for sure.
Yeah, and Rhonda. We mentioned Rhonda. If you're lucky enough to have Rhonda, unfortunately, she was an exclusive champion. She's got irresistible block passive and block active skills, which makes her really good actually for countering an awful lot of mythicals. But you're going to probably want to build her extremely fast, and you may even not be building her for damage if you're trying to plan these things to counter some stuff, which means her use is fairly limited otherwise. But she's
Mm,
pretty solid. She also is really good for I need multiple hits to kill people. Well, because she can constantly join in with this attack, you might not get the multiple hits from the champion you're trying to get through the shield, but like Marius might be able to strip everything but not actually do the final blow, and then Rhonda might come in. She's got a chance to join in the attack and finish the job as well. So more of a budget option, but definitely something that I think a lot of people forget how good Rhonda can be in PvP in all kinds of
mm.
different builds.
It's worth noting as well with Sigfrid, Soul Reap, it ignores his passive ability. So you can run Soul Reap on like a Marius as a one, for example, and that would ignore his passive. Most of the time when you kill Sigfrid with Marius, it'll be a Soul Reap blessing
Mm-hmm.
procking against him, which would be really good. You can
Bombs, I
also
think, ignore that
run.
too, don't they?
He ignores the passive, so the block damage doesn't go up with the Soul Reap.
Yeah, so like
So.
your Rat Kings can certainly be an option. Obviously, Commodus could possibly counter him. So
Yeah,
not that. Yeah.
bombs is ignores his passive ability. The problem is on the in-game arena, he will be normally in feral to a lightning cage. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're like at my level. It depends. Like if you see a secret lined up and he's using Crushing Ram or Phantom Touch or something else, then
Mhm.
for sure you can line that up to help.
And then, finally, again, with some of these things, ignore death strategies can certainly help as well. So your champions that don't die when they get hit, for some reason your Loyorius is the only person he can target with his A3. Well, Loyorius isn't going to die on that first hit, so he's good to go from that end. Rhodos doesn't die to him. Anybody who's got the revive on death or the reflect damage, as we mentioned. So those are your counters for Siegfried. He is difficult to deal with, but again, there's a lot. He's actually probably the easier one to deal with because a lot of it is figuring out how to lock him out or control him. CCs also work very well against him as well, because even if he does transform, he doesn't cleanse himself, I don't think, when he transforms.
Mm,
So he would be CC'd when he transforms into the other form, and then from there he's not going to be revived right away. You do have to deal with the block damage on him still, but as long as he can't revive anybody or he can lock him out in this other form, then he's not in bad shape. Otherwise, once he
Yeah.
transforms, he could just bring everybody back, and then you're back at square one of the fight, which doesn't help.
Yeah, when we're talking about Sigurd in early game arena, normally you're going to find him in Stone Skin, Ignore Defense set, or you're going to find him in a 9-piece Merciless, which I don't recommend for Sigurd, to be honest. And he is way more easy to deal with because champions like Fabian and Ahmad can help you. If he's in Ferals, well, you're just playing, you're basically just tossing a coin between a win or defeat because he's most likely got a one submissive.
Mm-hmm.
And one submissive is, well, as we know, is absolutely lethal, which has made all these nukers stronger. All these champions that we're talking about today actually stronger. So, even like we'll go into Nice in a second, but a lot of them are pretty toxic because of the one submissive. So.
Yep. So, speaking of toxic with the wand, I think it's probably time we move on to not him. Why do I keep on going to Shadowkin? I've even got this dude.
It does look a bit like a Shadow King.
Yeah, Nice is just he is just so good. For those of you not familiar with Nice, I know we talked a little about Sigfriend. He's got the splash damage A3 basically is what Sigfriend is really well known for. That probably is the hardest hitting damage dealing ability in the game. Nice has got the complete kit. He can ignore unkillable, block damage, and shield. He's got some turn meter control with a good hitting AoE that ignores shields and does not trigger counterattacks. He's got a block revive that also steals a bunch of different stats from people. And then in his other form, which he'll do when he almost dies, he'll flop over this other form. He can put himself within a protected block damage and counterattack, cleanses himself as well, so you can't use block debuffs to prevent this from happening. His A1 heals him quite a bit and is a double hitter, so it can hit through some of the single hit champions that protect him. And then this is a bit of a nuke that also does provokes and stuns. But in this form, he gets more HP and every other stat based off of people being dead, both on your team and on the enemy. And anytime he kills somebody, he revives one of your champions on your team. So he is the ultimate, you thought you had this fight when, no you don't champion. On top of the fact that in his other form, he's one of the best damage dealers in the game as well. So he is just really hard to deal with because it's really hard to put him down. So yeah, CCs used to be the way to do it, by the way, which is the budget option for the lower level, is stuns. Well, if he transforms into another form and he's stunned, he doesn't automatically cleanse the stun, which rose to you having Nice now with the Blessing Chainbreaker, I think it is, which is almost exclusively used on him. I mean, there's other champions I'm sure you use it on, but Chainbreaker gives you a chance to just shrug it off. So if he's got a 5-star or 6-star, 25% chance of just shrugging off any CCs in the first place. And then, of course, now you've got the Wand of Submission that everyone got for free, and you know Nice is going to be running it if you've got a Nice, because these are such hard counters to one of the things that he does well, that the more you can prevent that from happening on him, the better.
Yeah. The Nice is probably like the hardest one to counter out of all these options because how strong he's got with the relics and etc. So there's generally two ways to build him in his meta. The one way would be the 4-piece Ferals and Ignore Defense set, take a Lightning Cage, Blessing, and one submissive as an option. And then another one is a 4-piece Stone Skin and Savage with Chainbreaker. You probably don't need one of submissive so much if you're running Cage Breaker because it kind of does the same job. So depending on how you're running, you wouldn't really run Lightning Cage with the Stone Skin because if he flips, he's just gonna turn into a giant bird anyway and come after you. He can solo teams. So let's talk about ways of countering. There's a few options. So obviously in early game or lower end of the arena, if he's in Stone Skin, most likely you'll be able to control him and etc. The bombs also will heal. The only way of ignoring his passive ability, obviously Marius can be quite useful until you get to my end of the arena, and then Marius just kind of just tickles him. So it used to be before the relics came out that he would just flip and then Marius would kill him with a Soul Reap. But now it kind of a bit harder because he will heal himself from like Elixir of Gold or something, depending on what they're running on him, and then he'll just survive the Soul Reap as well, which is really annoying. So any multi-hitter is going to be strong, yes. Again, talking about our lovely lady in Harmony, strong affinity against him, so not in Harmony, Harima. Rhodas, again, because of its passive ability, can be useful.
And the block
UDK
damage
paired
ignore
with,
means he could ignore that counterattack as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Sheep
Gizmak also,
actually, obviously he's going to have some ways to block his ability to be sheeped, but if you get him in the bird form, sheep is one of the few ways you can remove those debuffs as well, and he may have burned through other stuff by then too. So sheep is certainly an
yeah.
option. So,
Gizmak is, yeah, Gizmak and Commodores are both strong counters to him. Another
petrification.
option, yeah, petrification is also another option to, it's the only way you can remove block debuffs unless you're going to polymorph him, which could be really, really useful against him. So Abias with the Hatred Burns, Gizmak, really strong duo who can counter them together because when you're with Gizmak, the problem with Gizmak is if you're stuck in the second form, you don't want to flip back, put the burns on, and then try to get back around, you're going to die. So with the with the Abias, you use the second form, you put the burns on with a second form, and then Gizmak saying, hello, block damage, we're going to ignore you now, and then you're going to go do tickle tickle. Obviously, Abias also has petrification in her kit if she's under death revive as well, which is a 35% chance with snipe. It does work with snipe as well. As far as I'm aware of, actually, maybe
I think
no,
it's
it
not
doesn't
sniper.
actually.
It's the other.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the other one.
Master Hex, yeah.
No, it's not Master Hexer. It is Fearsome
Fearsome
Presence.
Presence. Yeah, that's it there.
Actually, no.
So you can,
Fearsome Presence doesn't have petrification on here. Interesting.
maybe we need to test it because like a lot of things Raid don't change seem to change.
Yeah,
So that might be something to be worth
that's
testing.
something to ask in CC chat too, actually, because my guess is this is actually supposed to have it on there, and it probably doesn't. But
Yeah, they're very slow at these things.
mhm.
I guess then Phantom Touch actually is quite useful against Sigfrid because it counts as a hit. So a Phantom Touch on certain champions can be a counter to Nice. It's a little bit of a soft counter, but it can work on certain nukers. Like Georgie, for example, could be an
Yep,
option as well. Emerus, strong counter. Right, because he has a double hit on A1,
yep.
block revive as well.
This form's got the
Carnage
double hitter
as
with the
well.
necrosis if you got enough necrosis. And to be fair, actually, the other reason he's good as a counter is if you've killed everyone else on the team but Nice, and you get a bunch of necrosis stacks on him, he could kill himself, but he starts to take a turn because of the necrosis damage too. So
Yeah, and it
there's
adds up as well.
yeah, so there's ways that Empress is very helpful there. One of the things I do want to point out is Nice is the only passive that this doesn't ignore properly. And apparently that is not a
Yeah.
bug, that is a feature for some
Yeah.
reason.
Apparently, from the way that Raid explained it, it's not a bug. Personally, I think it's a bug because it should work similar to Sigfoot,
Hmm.
right? It says that it ignores passives. It's a passive, right? So, you know, it's like doing 2 at 2 and you somehow get 69 or 71, from the
Yeah.
maths. Doesn't make
Hmm.
sense, right? So, yeah, they're the also fairly good ways to kind of deal with him. But honestly, he's towards end game arena, like a +4 fully awakened. Honestly, is the worst thing to see. He can solo whole teams, and if you pair him with Star Sage, it's even worse. Just sometimes it's just better to exit the fight when you see something like that.
Yeah.
And save yourself the heap of
Yeah.
drama, etc.
And it's one of these
I
things too
guess
that, as we mentioned, it's a lot of people. I mean, my Nice is really good, but he's not great. And to be fair, I probably need to rebuild him because I think I've got mine in 8-piece Merciless. I actually used to have a 9-piece Merciless, and I found that I was occasionally outrun my own block damage, which was kind of dumb. So I probably need to put him in something a little different at some point. But
it,
the 8-piece Merciless has been kind of fun, but it's certainly not the most meta build. But that's the thing. People that don't have him in the best builds will be easier to counter because he's got some weaknesses, but basically Raid continues to put out new ways for him to ignore those weaknesses, and it makes it that much harder to control him. The
yeah,
wand, some of the different gear sets, and boom, he's just ignoring everything, shrugging off anything you can do with him. And because he's so strong, and really it is this passive here that continues to increase his speed, among other things, when other people die, just makes him so gross. The fact that he can get
it's that
100% bonus speed, he can outspeed 400 plus champions on the other's team just with
yeah.
certain builds. It's absolutely
It's
nuts.
it's the passive that absolutely makes him so strong. If it wasn't for his passive ability and being able to stack the speed and everything, he wouldn't be so much of a problem. but people think it's the A2 or the block damage, which is really nice on him. But that passive, them stats, longer the fight goes on, the more dangerous he gets. So for sure, be careful with him. And you know how many times I do takeovers and they have him and they'll be like, he's not that good. And I'm like, let me go get a frying pan
Hmm.
and hit you on the head with that because this guy is busted. And you should be happy to have him. Like, give him to me and I'll put him to use, you know?
Yeah.
So that would be the ways that I would kind of think about. I guess it's talking about the last champion, right? Which would be the Star Sage. This guy, he's like Armand, Duchess, Sifi. I
He's
mean,
the
how
ultimate. He
else?
is the ultimate support. He is four different
Yeah.
support champions in one. Is really a good way to describe this dude. You've got turn meter fill. You've got more turn meter fill and cleansing. You've got a revive and a very good revive here. I mean, this puts Duchess's revive to shame. Not the Duchess. Duchess has been power crept with that revive a long way. He's got
Hmm.
this passive that basically means he takes less damage when you put him with resistance, which you should be doing because he gets resistance bonuses on both forms. So you want to build him with resistance. He also has an active prevents his death as well as this damage reduction. So if you ever wondered why it feels like you're not doing enough damage against Star Sage, it's because he's ignoring at least 25% of this damage before anything else is being ignored. Then you get in the other form and you've got the AoE stun with decreased resistance and increased accuracy on everybody, and ignores a bunch of resistance, so he doesn't need 2 tons of accuracy, but he gets it from his passive because if he builds in resistance, he gets most of that with accuracy. It's the anti Mithrala level stuff, and then he has chance of transferring some of these debuffs back to enemies when they're placed on him, so he's almost unCCable. And then block active skills really is the best control skill in the game in many ways, shapes. This is why powerful A1s can be very, very useful, which, to be fair, is one of the reasons that Nice is still dangerous. Nice is A1, and both forms, well, actually, not true. His second form, his A1, is not that great. His first form, Nice's A1, is really, really good because it can hit through unkillable and other stuff like that, too. So, yeah, just
Hmm.
an absolute beast. Again, with the damage ignoring passives, this is where Narcissus is one of his better counters, because he ignores the passive on both sides of this. So Narcissus just straight up nukes through him. So Narcissus is a great counter for Star Sage. Um,
Yeah, I mean, for the soft option, Narcissus can slow him down with a Queen and Cora.
mhm.
Towards the end game, it's a little bit more difficult than that because he's very tanky, and Narcissus is not the hardest damage dealer out there. So if you're not putting up shields or strengthen, you're normally okay. Sometimes people put magma shield on him. Magma shield would give Narcissus a double hit because it does work with that. So like has soft counters early game, etc. The problem with Star Sage is you can build him so many ways. You can go 6-piece stone skin. You can go like super fast and use him as a control champion, strip champion at like 400 speed, which I know 1 or 2 players that do that, and just completely rely on a second form. You can then go like 9-piece pinpoint. You can go 4-piece Sonic, 4-piece Stone Skin, 4-piece Relentless, 4-piece Stone Skin. You just don't know what you're getting with this champion,
Mhm.
and it really depends on your account and how you're building him. Even when I do takeovers, I build in many ways depending on how I want him to be used on that account, and I have to try and teach people how to use him. So there isn't a lot of counters out there that are hardcore counters, but we can talk about soft counters. So first of all, the free champions that are free, Carnage, Emberus, and Marius all have
Mhm.
double hitters. Which is really, really good against his first form, because what he'll do is he'll take one hit, passive or proc, and then you'll have the second hit which will kill him, right? Also, you can kill the nukers of them, depending on how the
Mhm.
team is lined up. If he's only support, you can kill the nukers, he will revive, and then you knock him back down as well, which can be really, really
Yeah.
successful.
Marius's increased
Um,
accuracy is actually very critical against this dude as well because he's going to have the resistance. So if there's
yeah.
ever a champion you can count on to have as much resistance as possible on account, it's going to be a Galith.
Yeah, and you can use Armands to like A3M with the accuracy up if you time it correctly and sheepen, right, which is probably one of the best ways to deal with high-end builds. Most Star Sage that I know now are built with 800 resistance minimum. I know some people going towards 900 to 950 because they've got magma shields or the epic relic in the, I think the Chimera side, not Chimera
Mhm.
side, in the clans, which gives you the resistance main stat, which is really toxic with him. And some people building will want a submissive Aspect of Seroth,
Yeah.
which are all great with him as well, depending on the builds. There is another relic that's really strong in him, but I can't think right now of what that is off the top of my head. So maybe you know which one that would be.
I
It
know
was.
Golden Elixir could be kind of fun on him just because it's the extra heal when you drop him below 50% because you already struggled to do that. That's a fun one for some champions that just want to be mostly unkillable. That's actually not bad on Rotos either, amusingly, for the similar reasons. There's a
Hmm.
budget option for some of that stuff. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. There's a bunch of stuff that would make some sense for him.
There, it's the gems, it's the relic, it's mythical, and it's on the clan side, right? If you go to the clan one, it's gonna be the rebirth. So what this will do is give you the chance to get an extra turn when you revive your ally, and this is gonna
Oh
give him
yeah.
speed, HP, and defense, which is
Mhm.
gonna be super broken with him. If you compare that with him, and I think it's 100% chance, by the way, when it's fully upgraded, it's 100% chance extra turn. Basically, if you go 4-piece Sonic, 4-piece Stone Skin, and then this built-in Relentless set, guaranteed. Thank you very much. You can
Mhm.
also use the cube as well, which has a chance to give him extra turn when he metamorphs as well, which I don't think is that great on him. But that rebirth one is going to be super busted for sure. I guess Hannah Creation will be okay as well, depending on what you've got. Uh,
One of the ones I
yeah,
found is
this one
actually
would.
kind of underrated is the Orb of Transfixion.
Mm,
And because it's got this weird chance to steal buffs. Now, it's not a great chance. It's only 10%, 20, 35% chance. But like, I've actually found that I think I actually run this on my Narcissus. And because yeah, I could make him do more damage, but for the most part, it does all the damage he needs to do. What happens with this is Narcissus will occasionally steal a block damage when he's targeting somebody and just kill him out right afterwards. So I'm not going to say it's a reliable counter for anything, but the don't sleep on the Orb of Transfixion as a possible damage dealing something, especially for something that needs HP and maybe accuracy. Marius could be an interesting person for this as well, although honestly, I've got Cat's Gaze on mine, and it's just
Yeah, me too.
um,
The best relic for Maris, in my opinion, is one of submissive because a lot of people would try and sheep him with Armads.
mhm.
The problem with that is if you're using him in Chimera, which about 90% of us are, it's very expensive to swap over the relics, right?
Yeah.
So you don't ever have enough to swap them over, and Raid want to keep it like that as well. I used to run I used to swap it over a lot when I used to use him in Go Second teams because and he used to save me a lot, especially against Armads. This was before Fabian came into the meta, and I changed my play style. So yeah, I guess I think all of them are really useful. Again, bombs actually ignore his passive ability if you're lucky enough to land the bombs. Gizmak can be okay against him as well with a double hitter if you're not lucky with the one of the hits of the second form. Another way is make sure your speed tune on champions is very, very tight. Sigford can do some work against Star Sage because he'll revive, and if Sigford's fast enough, he'll knock his enemies back down with the AoE on the A2 and reset his
Mhm.
ability. Plus, give yourself another 75% turn meter because it's 25%, I think, per kill or something like that on Sigford's on his A2. So they're all good counters to him. Obviously, Nice is completely busted. Again, weak affinity to him. So, you take out how it is. Another one who surprisingly just come in is the Undead Mythical, who is a force affinity that can do some work against him. They have a soft budget option. She's really disgusting with Nice and Star Sage and Mariska. It is absolutely disgusting. I faced it once or twice. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't have her at the moment. I'm not talking about her, but she's going to be in their matter soon when people kind of figure out how to build her. I've seen one or two top players use her, so be careful of that as well. Don't sleep on her if you have her. And I guess that's about it, really, when we are talking about the counters to that. So looks like my beautiful face is frozen
Yeah.
on that side.
Well,
So
we're wrapping up. There we go. There you're back again. Perfect. But yeah, that is generally a good way to counter. You'll see a lot of things came up multiple times, which is good because that means that you can build some of these mythical counters on multiple different champions.
Mm,
But it is certainly one of these things. It's one of the things that the reasons that I like Live Arena, and I know you like Live Arena, because you have to put some of the thought into how you're using these champions. And in some cases, some of these champions can be built in so many different ways. You know, Galathir is hard to counter, partially because you could have 5 different types of Galathirs, and you don't know which one you're going to get at any particular time. That's one of the reasons, like Lazarius, he's a very difficult to deal with because you can build him in a couple different ways, but you deal with him either as a speed booster champion or as a nuker are really kind of the two support ways that you build him. And
mm.
both of those are things that are fairly standard to have to deal with. You either deal with a standard damage dealer or a standard speed champion. He's just dangerous because he could be either one of them and you don't know. Um,
Lazarius is questionably top five. I really think it depends. Like the top three, the strong top three is, in my opinion, is Gizmak, Star Sage, Nice.
mhm.
Gizmak goes into that area just because of how strong he is with pinpoint, etc. It's worth noting as well, actually, Ashnar is really good against Star Sage as well because on his second form he has a double hitter, which is really potent against the Star Sage. So with the right champions with Ashnar, he can also do some work as well. I'm going to do a video on that over the next couple of weeks for Live Arena, and I'll drop on my channel at some point. We'll see a Ashnar slap on the
Mhm.
thumbnail ready to go with my surprise thumbnail, which is a bit of a laugh overall. So yeah, I think that's about it for that. I think there is a couple of things that we could mention towards the end, which I wanted to mention, but I totally forgot if I'm being honest. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we did talk about it a little bit. One of the things, you certainly want to be careful what these guys are paired with as well. Sometimes they get paired with each other. It makes it even harder to deal with. If somebody's got a Galathir and a Nice and they put them both out there, you might be just screwed. Because it's definitely difficult to deal with. As we mentioned before, one of the things that Gizmak makes powerful is Gizmak works really well with, a Teox, for example, because he turbocharges a Teox. He also works really well with Volcanos because Volcanos empowers a lot of what you can do with burns as well, even without another demon spawn. But if you get a second demon spawn with Volcanos, suddenly you're blocking revive on some of these people you're killing with burns, and it's just absolutely disgusting. So you do want to be careful of the teams around them as well, and that's really kind of the reason. If you know how to deal with the mythical, you can sometimes ban a legendary that empowers the mythical a little bit more as well. So it's nice to know some of these counters. It's nice to be able to think about them, and yeah, at some point in time, it doesn't matter if I know the counters, for example, for some of these champions. I know I also don't have the gear to pull off the counters in some cases, and that's going to be the case as well. Sometimes you're just not going to be able to win some of these fights. But the more of these fights you can hang in on, honestly, the more I think people will start to enjoy Live Arena. And I think the more we can get people to enjoy Live Arena, the less it will feel like a bit of a slog, because it also can be a bit of a slog, particularly if you're being dragged through fights that you just don't enjoy because either you don't feel you have the counters or you just don't know the right counters. So
yeah.
appreciate you having me on, or appreciate letting me have you on. That makes more sense. And
Yeah.
Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitch 5 days a week, Monday to Sunday, streaming from 3 p.m. to around about 10 p.m. GT time, sometimes a bit longer. And then you can also find me on my YouTube channel as well, where I'm dropping daily guides on PvE and PvP on in-game content. Sometimes free to play, sometimes Kraken, short videos, which are always great to watch, right? And sometimes like a lot of collabs actually. I'm trying to do collabs every 2 weeks now. Just because I actually really enjoy talking about raids with people, especially with people that I watch from Twitch and you kind of look up to, and it's always cool to kind of hang out with people, right?
Yeah, I mean, guys don't get to see this sometimes, but I think the last time, because we spent like 3 hours talking, even though we only spent about 2 hours recording yesterday when we got a bunch of this stuff done, and we ended up talking afterwards. And it is fun to talk about people about Raid, and that's part of why we stream too. It's nice we get a chance to talk with you guys about this stuff too, and it's nice having other content creators on as well. So check out the video that we did. We're talking about some ways that we might want to improve Live Arena. I think that was kind of a fun video as well. Check him out. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button over on his channel, over on my channel as well. It has been a fun chance to chat with him. That is the Grim Reaper, and I have been Bront CatHerder.